Alright everybody, we are back on our Cummins. Got everything cleaned up and we're fixing to go ahead and start going back. And you know, a quick refresher, parts are hard to find. Go figure right now, huh? But on top of them being hard to find, some of them are impossible. Now, in this particular case, what we're going to do is reuse all the bearings and everything that are still in good shape. I've already pulled up my specs. And by the way, after looking at this, these are torque to yield bolts, and luckily you need to look, and you really need to pay attention here. What I wrote down was specs for used hardware. You need to make sure if you have used or new, because if you're doing new hardware, these specs, they ain't for you. Well, it's really windy in here, so I'm just gonna go ahead and time lapse this, because whenever the wind starts blowing through the shop again, you're not gonna hear a thing. So here we go. Okay, as you may have noticed in the time lapse earlier, I took a paint pen and I identified all of the pistons, rods, and rod caps. So, and I'm also going to do the pins as well, so that later whenever we go back with assembly, each part winds up in its prospective home, as it should. Because when you don't know how the factory balanced it. It could have balanced it specific to those parts, and so when you put them in different spots, it's just better practice to always make sure that you do put them back in their respective bores. So with that said, as you can see, I have cleaned off the bench, and like I said, each one labeled both on the piston cap end and rod. Now what we're going to do is go ahead and disassemble each one of the pins from the piston and rod, so that we can get everything cleaned up and ready to do bushings. Because since the one, as you can clearly see, there is no bushing here, and I'll show you on the other ones where you'll see that there is a bushing there. But remember that hammering sound back in the beginning? That's what it was. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and time lapse, get all these torn apart, we'll get them cleaned up, and then I'm going to show you what's what. So hang on, and we're going to go from there. Alright, as you can see, I've got all the parts cleaned up and laid out. Show you a few things that, like I say, I always make sure that I do. I make sure that I try as best I can to get good labeling. I don't know if you can see that one showing up in camera, but it shows up real well here. Hopefully, maybe I can get this one to show it. Looks like it's showing up there, as well as the pin. I labeled the pin. I also try to label my bearings because I don't want to have to go back and address something like that later. And it's the same 1 through 4. All of them are labeled. Now, to show you the defect, I tried to point it out in the time lapse. I don't know if y'all could make a good view of it. This is the rod with the bushing in it, and as you can see, with that bushing in there, there's no room for it to wobble or anything, so yeah, you can't make that slapping sound. This one is as it should be. It's got a little bit of wear on the inside, but very little. So we're still going to replace these bushings. But here's one that is not good. As you can clearly see, that brass bushing is not in there. See how much space there was? And that's what you were hearing, was that pounding as the motor would speed up or slow down. That's what it was. That hammering was the missing bearing, or bushing rather. So anyway, I'm gonna get all these rods packed up so that we can take them to the machinist, have him check this one out and make sure that this is still round, you know, just make sure it wasn't deformed in any way and that it's still true, and then have them press out the old bushings and press in new ones. So that's it for now on the rotating assembly. I'm going to move over and start cleaning the other parts. Okay, so update number 4, the same one that had the rod bearing or rod insert come out of the rod. That's the one that was hammering. You can see the pin's kind of marred up a little bit. It's not bad. I mean, you can barely feel it whenever you're feeling of it. However, after trying to reinsert it into the piston, it appears that the piston is kind of marred. And you can kind of see, let me get you in here. You can see a little bit of wear right there. Okay, and you can also see it, especially, let me see if I can get this pin out. You can especially see it on this side, if you can see in there, and that's because that pin was just, you know, hammering back and forth. You know, or rather, well, I mean, yeah, it was the pin, you know, bouncing back and forth from that rod, and that's what you were hearing. So with that said, now it's going to be piston and rod. So all right, with that said, I'm gonna move on to parts cleanup. Alright everybody, so off camera I went ahead and installed the oil pump. There actually is not a timing mark on the oil pump since it drives continuous, so you don't have to concern yourself with timing it. So next we're going to put our cover and our oil pan on, and then we'll be ready to move on and get ahead on this thing. So here we go. So, oil pan, front cover, oil pump. Now it's time to clean this dude up and get it ready to put the head on. So, let's clamp our head gasket and go from there. Alright, so we're all set up. We're gonna use a good old carb cleaner to clean our head gasket. However, this can has been in my shop for months. Why? Because there's no trigger. How many of you been here? So we're gonna cheat a little bit. Vise, fancy pick. You ain't got to use all that. I'm just saying. I got it. I'm gonna use it. You can use a nail, a screw. I don't know. There's a lot of things you could use. But what we're gonna do with it? This is one-time use. Oh yeah. Oh, let's get it clean. Use eye safety. I'm just telling you. Oh, it burns. Oh, I should have thought ahead. Don't do that. And if you do, wear eye safety. I mean, it's right over there in my box. I should have just grabbed it. What an idiot. All right. Sorry, I didn't notice that the camera had went off. This stuff with the GoPros shutting off is just an issue. But anyway, already copper sprayed it. Head gasket's on, so now we'll just torque our bolts and be good. Alright. A very quick, down and dirty how-to to setting valve lash on a 4-cylinder diesel. You're going to come up to top dead center on cylinder number 1. Your valves should be loose on number 1. So you're going to set your intake and then your exhaust on number 1. Then you'll set your lash on cylinder number 2's intake, and then on cylinder number 3 exhaust. Then you're gonna go around 360 degrees, bring it up on top dead center for cylinder 4, and you'll set cylinder 4 intake and exhaust, then number 2 exhaust, and number 3 intake. So that's that. And with that said, I've already set number 1, so now I'm going to do intake and exhaust on 2 and 3, and then spin it 360 degrees and do number 4.
got to see we're pretty much there. All that's left now is timing cover, starter, flywheel, clutch, and then it's ready to stab back. So I'm going to go ahead and glue the belt, the timing cover. hit it on, and we're off to the races.
Well, our Cummins QSB 4.5 is all back together. Yep. It's ready to go back in. So, in a few moments, Chris and I are going to do just that. We're going to get this thing in. With that said, the wind is just, it's ridiculous out there this morning. So I'm just going to put it on time lapse so y'all don't have to deal with the wind. Like I don't do that anyway. So here we go. Okay. That dude is in there. Oh yeah. Bill housing's tightened. All the motor mounts are installed. It's splined. It's just a matter of plumbing this dude back out and running the electrical now. And belts and putting the ton of hoses. Okay. There's still a lot left to do. There's a lot left to do, but let's just bask in it. Yeah. Out of my floor, in the machine. We're getting there. Let's do next. All right, everybody. It is very, very windy out here. So I'm going to do my best to spare you the wind noise and get this over. I've already done a lot of the work. Many of my lines are loosely ran, not tightened, and some of them not really even in the right spot, but nonetheless, we're getting there. So I put the radiator intercooler up. If you're curious, yes, it is. It is very heavy. So with that said, I'm gonna try to give you a quick look. Yeah, that radiator intercooler, it is all there. All right, I'm gonna put it back on time lapse to get rid of this wind noise, guys.
Okay, so got everything wrapped up. Sorry y'all didn't get to see the last little bit. I don't know if you can see the moisture on the ground and whatnot, but between the wind and the rain, it was just too much to try to film. Sorry, it's Texas, y'all. And this winter, we've had all these weird storms and whatnot, so it's been difficult. But with that said, here in a few moments, the correct oil filter will be here. We'll get that on, top off the fluids, and finally we'll hear Murder Kitten sing. So hold on and we'll be right back. Okay, so we are going to be ready for our first crank here on Murder Kitten. If you're curious, it's not just going to immediately jump off, I'm sure, because diesels don't do that. So instead, we'll probably wind up having to bleed the air out of the injectors and whatnot, and then this thing should bark off. So give us a little bit and we're gonna get started on this, so hang tight.
I got it. Hey.
Take two. Okay, so we're gonna go for our first crank whenever he's ready. Nothing? See, I told you, it never is easy on diesel. You still gotta bleed it every time.
Yeah.
The freedom ring, boss.
Good.
All right, everybody. So Murder Kitten's owners are here and they're gonna load this dude up. Listen to that baby purr.
Excellent. That's going to conclude it, guys. That's going to be the Fecon mulcher with the Cummins FSB 4.5. And that does it. We sure appreciate you for watching. Click that like and subscribe button. Don't be afraid to tell your friends. Click that share. Let everybody know. Thanks for watching Lewis Equipment Service, and we'll see you in the next video.